A group of people wanted to have a sculpture that was dedicated to the life, the memory, the contributions I.B. Wells made to the community, particularly the African American community.
Who was this woman who understood that there can be no civil rights without women's rights? Who was this woman who stood against the most barbaric?
The way that art allows us to solidify history in a way, not just through a plaque that tells us the detail behind the story, but by the work itself, what these symbols represent made of iron and steel and metal. That's what's really brought to light, as the title suggests, in this documentary. How this statue can solidify someone's legacy and ensure that all that she did and all that she continues to influence now is recognized and appreciated by the current generation and all the generations to come. This woman, Ida Wells, is incredibly impressive. But as pointed out, especially towards the end, we sometimes might know these names just by the sound of their name, by familiarity, but we won't really understand what people have done. But by creating these monuments that we can use for reverence, we can also continue to build knowledge and understanding to build a stronger future moving forward.
This whole film was done so incredibly well. I mean, I think that the cinematography was beautiful, and I really liked the way that they introduced Ida B. Wells. Um, they gave her an intro that she deserves. The interviews and explaining the old photographs and the old video clips, it was such a great way to explain why Ida was so important to history, but also why Richard was chosen to do this sculpture. And the sculpture is absolutely breathtaking. It is so gorgeous. Um, yeah, it was really educational to get a chance to hear all of the interviews and and kind of have a deeper understanding of the role that Ida played in African American history and getting them female rights, but also for African American rights too, because let's face it, they have been persecuted by white people. White person, very sorry about that. That I still embarrassed at what my race did. So anyway, I think that this film is sensational. I think that everybody should watch this. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous film. And Richard, getting to know Richard and finding out how he got into sculpting and the beauty of the sculptures that he's done. This was really cool.
This has a lot of American history that isn't necessarily generally known across the way. And I think it's very important to have representation of these stories from those who have lived through this experience. So we have this monument being made to honor a Black woman. And we get to learn about her history and the impact that she's made, not only for when it comes to Black history, but also the lives that she touched when she was amongst the living. We get to see her ancestors continue to share her story, those who were impacted and helped by this individual. And we really get to see Black voices standing up and continuing to empower Black voices, which is really important to have and fight for. We get to see this experience of this Black artist making a monumental sculpture to honor a Black woman who has made such an impact to just such history. It was so interesting to be able to see, to have these monuments that actually represent good people doing good things and fighting for the people.
I really enjoyed how they kind of melded everything together, and it wasn't just learning about Ida in way more depth than, even you get taught unless you're seeking that information out yourself, which I really appreciated because I feel like, especially at least for me, I always heard about her in relation to like her work with the suffrage movement because like I am a woman and that was just such a monumental movement, being able to have the right to vote and how much work and dedication and bravery it took. And I'd always heard about her with like in importance put on that, but also obviously all of the work that she did during the civil rights movement and all of the work that she did after that as well, of you know continuing to be a voice, continuing to write, continuing to try and better the world. It extended beyond that of who the sculptor was that they got to actually make this piece, and his history and why it was so important for Chicago and for the art commission, that he was the one that was chosen, he was the one that agreed, and the kind of symbolism he puts behind a lot of the majority of his pieces, and learning about his history as well, and is the way that they would kind of move from giving her piece to his piece, and like I said, really melding them together along with showing you the progress, how much work and effort it takes to make such a large scale sculpture, especially one that's being made out of metal. And I just thought it was really lovely. I thought all of the information was very informative, and it really goes to show you how long lasting legacy can be.
I loved how it was able to recount in detail the history of these two brilliant people, Ida and Richard. Both important figures were given balanced presentations. I loved the archival black and white photos and videos, and the people interviewed were so passionate and enlightened about art and history. It was thrilling to see the statue being designed and built step by step. It was fascinating to witness the development of Richard's art over time and also hear about the bravery of the feisty Ida, who was way ahead of her time in her fight for the rights of women and for Black Americans. The music choices under the piece were excellent, so varied, from resonant vocals to gorgeous piano and even xylophone. I now want to travel to Chicago to see this fabulous monument by Richard to honor such an incredible woman.